Don't let your brushes sabotage your makeup. We all love brushes. However, the wrong size or shape of brush for the size and physiology of your face can ruin it. Let me explain, starting with complexion brushes. So just because a brush says, maybe on the website, what it's supposed to be used for, doesn't mean that's what you personally are going to use it for. For example, all of these brushes describe bronzing. They say they're bronzing brushes or they're for powder bronzer or powder. This one, if I was to press to do bronzer with it, in fact, I'm going to show you right now. I'm going to put some bronzer on the back of this, work it really into the brush, even though I'm really priming my brush, making it great. But where I'm going to get the bronzer, I'm trying to get it where I want it to be. But because the brush is so wide, you can see that a lot of it is here, very low and not in a good place for my face. Whereas if I use something which is a better shape, see the other thing about that is the shape is not good because the surface is very flat. Whereas for me, having a small face, likewise this one, you're going to get a really big expansive area with that one. At least this is big, but it's tapered, so I'm going to be able to control a bit more. But ideally, for someone with my size of face, this would be the perfect bronzing brush. And I'd still be able to get it kind of to look really soft, but at least even pressing hard, it's not going to end up lower than I kind of want it to. So already you can see that is kind of going to go where I want it to go. Also, a big brush is picking up too much product. So I've got way too much product here. Even if I'm not really sweeping into it. On my forehead, I'm obviously going to get half of it in my in my hairline. And also quite a lot of it in my eyebrows, which I don't necessarily want. Whereas with a much smaller brush, one that fits my face shape, I'm picking up less product on a smaller area, and I'm able to kind of work with that. If I was to do my eyes with this as well, because I like to bronze my eyes, I'm getting so much of that on my lashes, which I don't want. Whereas here, because that end is tapered, even though it's a big brush, I'm able to really get a lot less going on there. Okay, so even when I was trying to do my eyelids, obviously this brush came right into here. Now I have too much bronzer here. I've got it all over, and there's nothing really nice about that because it's too much product, too much color. It's sort of light here and too dark here, and it's too low. Whereas this is the right size of brush for me. And also it's so much easier. So your brushes need to match your canvas, not someone else's. Same with contouring. Some brushes, which are aimed to be hug the cheek and all of that, again, perfect if they fit your face. This for me would just be too much, too long, too wide, wouldn't suit my cheek. This one would obviously be way too big. Even if I was using it in a really subtle way, it's too square and it's not going to hug the cheekbones. It's not going to work the way I'd need it to work. And it's not to say any of these brushes are bad. It's just to say they're not the right size. So yeah, if I was trying to do contouring with a brush as big as that, I've got so much blending to do now. Whereas if I use a smaller, more tapered brush right from the beginning, I'm already kind of blending as I go. Because actually the tip of this is so tiny, it's kind of like a small brush, but in a big body. And this is the perfect size for me for doing that kind of makeup. And I'm getting a softer finish. So it kind of takes the work out. Because otherwise, if it's the wrong brush, you're working twice as hard. When you're doing your blush, again, some of the brushes that you see advertised for blushing, I mean, I've got too much product on there, even though I've primed that brush. But it's such a big brush, it's picked up a lot. See, I'd want a much smaller brush. That is just too big an area, whereas I want something small and soft focus. And that's what you kind of want. The smaller the brush, the right shape, the right size will really help you get the best results. So if I'm doing highlighter, this is going to be a little bit of of course, I'm pushing it a little bit here. Here's 2 different fan brushes. If I use this one for my highlighter, it's covering my entire cheek and I've picked up so much product. This is the brush that I usually use. This is a very blingy highlighter powder, but even with the right brush that I normally use, the difference is incredible. And I literally swipe them the same. So it's the same amount, but one just picks up. It's so enormous, it's picking up way too much. When it comes to eye brushes, really it depends on how much space you've got. If you have a lot of available space, you need obviously bigger brushes. If you've got not a lot of available space, you need smaller brushes. Having said that, you don't want to go too small because then you end up with mean, hard lines on your makeup. But I'll just show you in terms of shape, something like this, which is very wide at the top. This would not work for my socket line because I don't have enough space. So if I was to go in with a brush this big, okay. That was too much product, but even so, just to sweep across, it's already hit my brow bone, okay? That put too much product on there, but I'll show you now with a brush. So I'm going to put the same amount on, so it is a lot, but if I'm using the right size of brush, even though I'm going for a strong look, even though I'm pressing just as hard, I am still going to need to blend that, but you can see I've got a chance, a fighting chance of actually having that in the space where I need it to be, i.e. the socket line. Sometimes I use a brush as small as this on a contour because if I've kind of done a transition and someone has a really small face or really small eyes, I'll go as small as that as a kind of final blend on the contour because I really want to get in there. Powdering is an area where brush size really matters. Very often powder brushes are huge, which is fine. You know, I'm going to prime this brush. I'm going to get the powder all into the bristles, but I'm going to end up with it everywhere. I'm going to breathe most of it in by the feel of it. And that looks fine, but a lot of it is in my eyebrow, which I don't want it to be. And I feel like, really, I would definitely be happier with a smaller brush or small pads because they are fantastic as well if you've got a smaller face. Obviously, if your face is bigger, then you can get away with a big pad. But if it's smaller, just again, prime that sponge and tap in. And that is going to be so much more effective. Plus, if you've got like a really nice highlight or a liquid highlight, it's going to be so hard to not powder with a brush this size and to avoid those little areas where you want dimension and you want that highlighter to show. But this is just going to give you a real blanket cover. In a nutshell, choose your brushes wisely. What works on your friend, what works on other people, won't necessarily work on you. You have a particular physiology, a structure to your face that is unique to you. You'll also have a style of how you like your makeup to look. The more the brushes suit the shape of your face, the easier your makeup will be.